Good evening and welcome to the Marin Law Library's First Thursdays at the Law Library. For those of you who are returning to us, either live or watching us later, you know that we've been doing this since November 2019. It was a timely addition that came about because we were really paying attention to what the folks who were coming to Lawyers in the Library were interested in. Our good fortune is that we have a generous community who, when invited, will share their knowledge, will share their expertise, and come to an event like this. That's why we have them. That's why we record them. I poked fun at myself before we started by saying I thought 6 o'clock was a great idea. As my colleagues on the board would tell me, people have lives, and they may not be able to get there at 6 o'clock. So what we decided to do was record them. We hope that you'll visit YouTube, the YouTube station. We hope that you'll look up Marin County Law Library, and you'll find that we have a growing collection of interviews with the people that have consented to both be presenters and to be recorded. We've had everyone from the district attorney to the public defender. We recently have had the folks from Vivalon in the past. We have had a large number of folks in this 2-year period, and we continue with a special presentation tonight, and I will tell you a little bit about them. I'd like first to make reference and once again welcome the new staff that has joined us here at the Marin County Law Library. We have a brand new law librarian. We are delighted to have Stephen with us. He is with us tonight. I would invite everyone in the community to stop by the law library, get to know our staff. We have the good fortune of having dedicated professionals who are there. We have increasing hours. We would love to see everyone in the community that is interested. Tonight, we are very lucky to have with us a group that many in Marin County will be familiar with. This is the Marin Organizing Committee. And the Marin Organizing Committee brings to mind something for me. If we were going to talk about what a community is, there's many definitions, but there's one that I really like when I think about this group. In this case, community is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. As you learn more about our guests tonight, you will find that this is exactly what they do, and they do it with a broad-based number of members of our community. This organization was founded in 2009, and it's an affiliate of the Industrial Areas Foundation, the IAF, which is the nation's oldest and largest leadership development and organizing network. The IAF bases its work on the idea that a healthy democracy requires the active participation of ordinary people. MOC, and I'm going to abbreviate the Marin Organizing Committee, is a broad-based network of local institutions. They are faith-based, they are nonprofit, they are educational, they are labor, and they are civic organizations. And they come together to develop leaders and identify shared issues affecting our communities. And they take action around these issues. How is this paid for? The members' institutions actually pays dues to ensure the MOC has a secure and independent core budget and is primarily accountable to its own constituents. It is nonpartisan and multi-issue. The member organizations work together to develop local agendas by engaging constituents both within and across institutions. They do this via conversations about the issues affecting their families, their neighbors, and their communities. By joining with other institutions that have similar goals and concerns, the MOC increases their collective power and work to achieve victories on local and regional issues. I would like to take a moment and introduce the two folks that have come to us tonight, and to give them a warm welcome and to thank them for sharing their time and their passion with us. First is Pat Langley. She is a parishioner at St. Anselm's Church in Ross and one of the leaders of the Marin Organizing Committee. Also with her tonight is Gail Dorff, who is a member of Congregation Kol Shafar and of the Marin Organizing Committee. I will take the time now to say thank you for your valuable time, your passion, and your commitment, and most assuredly, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you for your introduction, which is a great summary of all that we do. So, Gail, I'm Pat Langley, as Denise mentioned, from St. Anselm's Catholic Church. And with me tonight is Gail Dorff. Gail, want to say hello?
I want to say hello, and I thought the introduction was so good. I was thinking, what else can Pat and I tell you? So many things about our organization that are actually a great summary and a concise way of thinking about us. So we're going to try to put some bones on that with examples. Great job there, Denise. We're going to hire you for that.
We will.
Just try and keep me away.
Well, we hope we do that. As Denise mentioned, we're a broad-based organization. We have 23 institutions that are dues paying and mainly faith-based, but we also have organizations like Legal Aid of Marin, the Marin Community Clinics, MV Can, which is a Mill Valley community organization, and the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative, who work on affordable housing issues. And so we come together, and we're going to kind of go over how we come together and what we do, but we come together for our shared values and our shared concern for our local community, our Marin community. We are part of a very large organization that extends throughout the US, and we have, during COVID, one of the benefits of COVID is that our California institutions, because of Zoom, have been able to come together and discuss issues and actually act on issues, and we'll talk about that a little later, that affect voters and residents. So in non-COVID times, we gather together. And what do, Gail?
Well, we talk a lot. One of the reasons that we talk a lot is that we're based in creating relationships between people. We think that you can't actually, without relationship, move forward to create power and interest in an institution. So I would say that inside each institution that's a member of the organization, we usually have a core team, a group that is working on really creating a more relational community inside their own institution, where we have meetings together, where we talk about what are the issues that trouble us, what keeps us up at night. And those issues that keep each group up at night become the backbone of how we create an agenda of issues. And so the issues that we'll talk about later, some of which have already been mentioned today in your introduction, the issue of aging, the issue of housing, those things happen inside our institutions as well. And we know which ones we can support and give us traction by how many institutions really are ready to kind of sign on and say, this matters to us and we're going to work for it. The big deal after that, in a way, is because these issues that we've mentioned are so big, the question is, what can we work on that can actually have an influence and have an upstream solution that can help people's lives become better. And the slide that's up there that's called Developing Leaders, I'm going to ask Pat to talk about, because part of what we do in these relational meetings is actually in our own institutions, try to figure out who has an appetite to work on these issues. For whom does this burn? Who really wants to go out there and learn more and find out more? And I'll let Pat say something about that.
So developing leaders really cuts across many aspects, because some of us have been leaders in our own community, and we know how to lead a presentation or get people involved, but we don't necessarily know how to get people in a civic engagement. And that's a whole new skill. So we also, because we're hearing stories of what's going on in people's lives, we learn of individuals who may not have been able to develop their leadership skills. And we do that. We help people who have an interest in a particular area, and we work with them to have the skills to present what their ideas are in a public forum. And so we'll have all sorts of leaders that come forward and build our community. And it is based in our local institutions. So when we have discussions, and we call them house meetings within our institutions, then we're looking for people who have a real interest in what they're talking about. Because as all of you know, there are many ideas out there as to how to make the world a better place. But if you don't have people with a concrete interest willing to work on something, the idea has no legs to go on. So you have to have people who are willing to work on something. And
maybe Pat, give an example of a concrete issue that we've worked on and seen results. I think that would put meat on the bones.
okay.
This is an example of some gathering that we had before COVID.
Right. So there was in San Rafael, in the canal area, there were a couple of 2 or 3 buildings that were sold, and the new owners raised the rent. This was in July. They raised the rent by 40 to 50% as of September 1st.
This was some years ago.
This was a couple of years ago, it was pre-COVID, but not that far pre-COVID. So we gathered with the people who reached out to us and reached out to legal aid. And they said, we can't handle this increase. And so we would meet in the park and we would hold our talks about what needed to be done. And what we needed to do was to make sure that those people who are supposed to be representing us in the San Rafael government, they heard the story. This is happening in their city, and what can we do about it? So we arranged a meeting with the mayor, city council member, actually the superintendent of schools, who came and heard the stories. And when the superintendent of schools left that meeting, he went to his office and he asked, how many children live in these 3 addresses? And there were 67 children, and their families didn't know whether they would be in the school system when it started in August, because they didn't know if they had to move or find some other housing, who knows where. And as we all know, our housing here is impossible to find. And so our plan was, so we let the owners know we felt that there should be some sort of negotiation about this high rent increase, and they were very reluctant to work with us. And so we said, okay, well, we're having a press release on a particular day. And we're just gonna, this fits into one of our issues, and our issues are housing in Marin. So we set the time. It was going to be at noontime. I believe it was a Friday. And the owners did not want to talk at all. So we gathered everyone together. And when they arrived, we learned that at 9 a.m. we had a conversation with the owners, and they were willing to negotiate.
Can I interrupt you 1 minute? I want to say one thing about this story that is really important about all the stories. That is, it's not like our elected officials don't want to do the right thing or are bad people. It's actually that they're a little distant from the real stories of live people. And the story of the superintendent all of a sudden saying, how many children are there? Or in other cases, really coming to grips with the fact this is real live people who have mold, who have mildew, whose kid is asthmatic, who the teacher has come to complain. I mean, those kind of on the ground stories move people to think that they really have to act. And I think that that's the power of the people and the power of the real stories of the lived life of people. So that's just what I wanted to add to what you were saying, Pat.
Yeah. So, you know, they were going to get an increase, but it wasn't going to be 40 to 50% immediately. And so those families were able to do some planning as to what they were going, how they were going to handle this amazing. I mean, none of us can handle a 40 to 50% increase in our rent in the next couple of months. So that's developing leaders to, I mean, I didn't tell their stories. The leaders who lived in those homes came, and we gave them the tools to express themselves. And our news event made front page on the IJ with great pictures of people holding wonderful signs. My favorite was, you can't do homework without home. And so there we go. That kind of illustrates how we work.
So, and then this notion of relational meetings, it sounds like a catch-all term, but it's really not. See these people talking to each other. There's a question and they're talking about something and they're getting to know each other through talking about an issue. We do that inside of our institutions, and we do that among all of the people who come to our leadership meetings. And without a relationship, you don't have the strength to agitate about what you want to change. It's when you're building it on relationships of people, then you're ready to get in the face of people who aren't doing it and who aren't moving on it. And we do this in many ways. There are one-on-one meetings. There are small group meetings that we like to call house meetings. Not that they take place in a house, but they can take place. This was in a church setting, I think, where people were gathered together to talk about some of the stories that they had heard and how their lives have been impacted by the housing issues. We also do it in what we call civic academies. That is, let's say that an issue has been raised up, like renter protection or mental health for youth. So then we organize around that issue, and a team of people who are interested in it start to meet with others who know about it. In youth mental health, we've met with the supervisors, we've met with the county, we've met with behavioral health, we've met with therapists. I mean, we've met with the school people, we've met with a ton of people and learned what's being done. And do they even know between them what's being done? That's always a big issue. Everyone's doing, but nobody knows what the next guy's really doing. And we teach what we've learned to our people in civic academies. So if I'm on youth mental health, I'm in a group that's going to tell you more about what I've learned. Or Pat is on the aging team. She's going to tell you with her whole team what they've learned, so that one of the civic engagement, it's a big educational project. It's not just a leadership educational project, but it's an issue educational project. And I have to say, as a person, I'm in Jewish education. I've worked my whole life teaching and teaching teachers to teach. I knew nothing about any of these issues. I mean, it's not like I didn't vote, but and I studied it up, but I can't believe how much a citizen really ought to know in order to be a good citizen. And I think that the thing we're trying to do is really help people exercise the rights of being a citizen and standing up. One of my favorite stories was when we were working on getting an ID for undocumented workers or undocumented people. And there was you couldn't get a license, but there was this move to get some kind of an in lieu of license, from Sacramento, and in lieu of license kind of thing. And I loved it. One of our leaders, Christina, organized a group to go with her to Sacramento to speak on behalf of this issue. And here's what I loved about it. She didn't have a license, but this man, she drove, but she didn't have a license. She had the guts to organize her group to go to speak on this. And when this issue was resolved, in California was one of the first places to have IDs. So your car couldn't be towed, you were driving with the right ID. I thought, God, that's real guts to be able to do that, because you know how much it matters. And then I was so impressed, but for herself, she was so impressed. And she said to me then, when we were working on getting people out to vote, she said, I can't vote here. And in my country, voting meant nothing. But I have told my children who can vote that they have to get out there and vote, because this matters in this country, that you have to vote and you have to support the issues that matter to you. And I mean, things like that happen on a day-to-day basis don't just impact our local officials, they impact us. I mean, to see the bravery and the commitment makes you know that you got to stand up yourself and stand up there to do what needs to be done. And so the last slide we showed you had all this, many issues that have come before MOC over time. And at our last delegates assembly, where we all gathered, we decided that the issues that we were going to really push in this next little bit of time were 4 issues. Pat's going to start to talk about them. And that we were going to have an accountability session where we brought those people running for office in Marin to meet these issues if they hadn't yet, and talk with us about, were they willing to work with us on these issues? Because in MOC, we're nonpartisan. The issues are our candidate. What we're voting for are our issues. So maybe, Pat, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I would like to mention one other action that we did, and this was during COVID, right at the beginning of the lockdown. We organized all of the groups, our sister organizations in the state got together, and our issue was that there was a tax benefit for the poorest of our taxpayers. And actually, Ronald Reagan put this into effect and said it was, it was a star of his social services program. And that was the earned income tax credit. So if you're in the low end of the economic scale, you can get a tax benefit and save money. But you know what? It wasn't available to those unless you filed your taxes by Social Security number. So if you wanted to be a citizen and you were working and you were paying your taxes, and you weren't making much, but you were paying your taxes, you could not take advantage of this tax benefit because you used an individual taxpayer ID rather than a Social Security number. And that just wasn't fair. That the poorest in our community were being taxed more. So we got together and one of the elected officials in Sacramento, so we planned together, and then we all gathered. There were over 900 people on a Zoom call.
This is a statewide gathering.
Right. And one of the elected officials had said to us, we haven't had the moral voice on this issue. It had come up time after time in the legislature, but there was no one speaking up for it. So, and this was in the time when the state thought it was going to go broke because of the pandemic. It was before they realized that there were federal programs coming in. So it passed, and I'm really proud of it. So actually, if we can just go back, Stephen, to the, okay. So as we mentioned, we talk a lot. We talk to people within our congregations, we talk as groups. And actually, we had over 500 conversations, and we asked the question, what are the pressures? What keeps you awake at night? That was our question. And then we listened. That has to be the other part of it. You can talk all you want, but someone's got to listen. And we listen carefully. And then we do research. So we developed 4 teams, and our 4 teams are on youth mental health, aging and disabilities.
That's the next slide, Stephen.
Pardon? Okay, go to the next slide. Thanks. Aging and disability, renter protection, mental health for youth, we decided that, and then COVID came and it really hit everybody. And we do actions on this. As Gail mentioned, we go out and we talk with people in the field. Now, I'm part of the aging team. And when we were in the house meetings, across the board, everyone was saying aging in Marin is an issue. Because as Denise said earlier, it's the silver tsunami. We are the oldest aging population by county in the state.
Bravo, we won something. Good for us, yay!
A number of tough things. But so everyone, I mean, I know from listening at St. Anselm's, people had story after story about how they want to age in their home. We want to have that ability, but it's difficult. And so we said, great, we'll be aging. Well, when we started our investigation, we found out there are 200 organizations in the county working on aging. And we said, well, wait a minute, why are we doing this if everyone else is? But we listened carefully across boundaries, and there is an issue around caregiving. Because if we're going to age in our own home, we need to have help. And in order to have, and we listen to caregivers, and they're coming from Alameda, they're coming from Sonoma, they're driving in, and the pay rate is just incredible.
Which means poor.
You can make more money at In-N-Out Burger than you can being a caregiver. You can make more money at Starbucks. So that is an area that no other group was covering. And so that's going to be an area that we're working on.
I was going to say,
right now,
one of the things that they found out is that the county, is it the county or the state, that 1685 is what they consider their minimum wage, and they think that's good, but that actually you need at least $28 an hour to live in Marin. And of course, that doesn't give you so much either, but think about the disparity between that. Discrepancy is more than $10 an hour of what a person would need.
And we also learned that you can make over $2 an hour more if you work in San Francisco. So where do you want to be a caregiver? Do you want to, if you're making a minimum wage, you're going to go where you can get, more money, and that's $80 a week is $80 a week. So right now we have in front of us a real opportunity. There are 2 county supervisors with no incumbent. And why is it important that I happen to live in District 1 in San Rafael, and there is, Damon Conley is not up for office, so it's an open office. But why should I care about who gets voted in Nevada? Because our Board of Supervisors is a collective. They're going to vote on issues that affect my life. So it is important to me, even though I can't vote on it as to who's elected in Nevada, it's important for me to know that they understand what I consider to be important. So we have, and then probably a great concern to everyone in Marin is the county superintendent of schools. We've been really blessed with a caring superintendent of schools. I think Mary Jane Burke has been 18 years on the job. She set a standard. We have had multiple meetings with her. We don't always agree. We don't always agree with all the supervisors, but we have respectful meetings and we get our point across. And so our opportunity is right now. And Gail, want to talk about how we do this opportunity?
Well, so you see, wait, go back to that, go to the next, okay. Here are the issues that are on our agenda right now: affordable housing, youth mental health, aging and disability, homelessness. We could say, I mean, one of the things is we've talked a lot, so we could say a ton about each of these things and what we've learned, but we're not gonna. But if you write down that www.moc.iaf or blah, blah, maybe Stephen, you could put it in the chat, you will see more information that will give you more information about each of these issues. We're gonna hold accountability session. That is a meeting that's different than the meetings we've talked about so far. It's a meeting where we're inviting those running for office to come to hear stories about each of these issues, told by somebody who is feeling the burn, so to speak, really feeling the pressure. And then they'll be asked some questions. Now, one of the things is, when people come to this meeting, they're invited, they can say no. But if they say yes, and if they're told what the meeting's about, I mean, this is not an idea of embarrassing anybody or pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. Here are the issues that we're worried about. Here's what we want to know. And really, we want to know, will you work with us on these issues? They're all complicated. And what we have found over time in terms of the working together is that one can build up a kind of a trust and a working relationship that actually comes out for the best for everybody. It's not trying to push anything, but of really supporting these issues. And so on April 26th, on the back end, do we have the back end of that? Go to the next thing, register for, is there one more slide? Yeah, there you go. So we invite you and all your friends to come to this accountability session. We may in fact have two, we'll let you know. We may have one on April 26th, where we meet the supervisors from District 1, the superintendent of schools, and one on May 11th, where we meet the candidates for Novato, because there was a scheduling issue, and we wanted to make sure we were able to meet with all of them. And what we're going to do is do both of them on Zoom, so people could come to either or both. What I like to say in my congregation is this is a meeting where tushies on the seat counts. That is, more people matter. That if people who are running for office see that many people care about these issues, that helps to raise them to the front in terms of their agenda. And that's what we're working on, really trying to make Marin a better place for everybody to live, not just those who are privileged, those who can afford, but to make it a better place for all of us. So we invite you to come to that meeting. You can put, oh good, you put that in, yay, on it. And if there's another registration link for the other date, I'll send it to you and you can send it out to your members as well. Okay, Stephen? What we had thought,
I'd be delighted to help with that and to help you get the word out. I will take some initiative here and volunteer to do that.
perfect. And I don't know, can you see when you're on the phone, the links?
No, but I will follow up with this, and I will also be able to watch the Zoom.
We had really thought to break up into groups at this point, but there aren't so many of us. Why don't we just open the floor to questions that you have?
Well, actually, I'm going to start with a question for you, and that is, what keeps you awake at night? What are the issues that bother you about your daily life and your community?
Thank you.
Douglas.
I think what most worries me is, I mean, if you keep it to national issues, not international ones, is, and actually the same issues apply worldwide. It's the deterioration in our democracy due to the power of money, and those in politics are doing their damnedest to restrict voting privileges and fill our airwaves with all kinds of falsehoods. This is hugely disturbing to me, and I hope it's hugely disturbing to all our citizens, all our residents. It's a huge downslide for what we have always stood for and always thought we were moving forward in making better and better. And now suddenly a huge chunk of our leadership and our voters are trying to chop that all back down way beyond even what it was 50 years ago.
Yeah. Barbara.
Well, I'm interested in all four of the issues that you've brought up. And of course, you know, right now I'm working in the field of aging and am concerned about older people being our most vulnerable population and not being treated with respect or fairness often. On a local level, what keeps me awake, I worry about the fires. That you know, are we ready to do what we need to do in the event that, you know, something beyond our control like that will harm our entire community? So
when it comes to that, I think, you know, especially elderly, the young, the people who have to do their work outdoors, they are so highly susceptible to both extreme heat, the fires themselves, and of course the smoke. And we're all getting the smoke like year after year now. And these are huge health risks. And there are people who don't have air conditioning, like I said, have to work outdoors, et cetera. And we need to take care of the whole community.
One of the things that's been interesting to me is that I remember one of our members came to me, actually, it was shortly after Trump was elected, not to be partisan, this isn't partisan, but he was so depressed. And he went to talk to the rabbi. I mean, he was feeling like he couldn't go on. And she suggested that he will join our synagogue's core team, to work on local issues. And one of the things he said is that once he started to do that and saw that we could make some inroads here, it made him feel better. That is, he had a sense of agency. Some of the things are so big and so huge and really so demoralizing. When you were talking, Douglas, I thought, oh my God, yes, that keeps me up at night. I mean, every night I think about Ukraine and can't sleep. I mean, it's like just horrible. I mean, it's hard to believe that the world is like it is. And I think that one of the things that in a way saves me is that anytime I do something in this organization that brings something better to even 3 people, I feel okay. For those 3 people, it's better. For that people in that building, it's better. And it in a way keeps me sane in a funny kind of way, because those other things are just, yeah. What keeps you up at night, Pat?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's the issue of healthcare. I have 2 people very close to me battling cancer, and I am so grateful that they have health insurance. And I know not everyone has the kind of health insurance that they have support that they can do. Well, one's my daughter-in-law, and she goes and has her treatment. And she's not teaching now because she can't be around kids and all. But there are people who have to come on Thursday afternoons and Fridays to get their treatment so that they're well enough to go back to work on Monday because they can't afford. And that just, we're really lucky. But the horror of hearing her say the person next to her has to go back to work on Monday and knowing what she's going through. So healthcare is really big. Healthcare for all right now isn't big in my life.
Stephen, what keeps you up at night?
Well, I suppose really just the issue of legal access. I mean, because legal publications are expensive, attorneys are expensive, and with student debt, a lot of attorneys who go into law school who want to do public interest work and get hopes and dreams crushed. I mean, fun fact, the American Bar Association's Guide to Mental Health in Law School, their first opening was the crushing of hopes and dreams as one of the major mental reasons of people in law school. So I would say that really. So, I mean, I have my small part at the library, but it's still very difficult. So,
Denise, how about you?
One of the things, and it so incorporates many of the issues that you have brought up, and Stephen just touched upon, access to justice at so many levels, be it housing, be it rights for the homeless. These issues I see towing and impoundment in San Rafael that you worked on. At the same time, we have people who are facing huge fines for not paying the toll to get across the Bay Bridge. And these multiply in ways that are incredible. And it all comes down in many cases to any access to a resource and justice in the legal system to have representation. Stephen could better describe his experience as a law librarian and a previous staffer in a law library about the number of people who attempt to self-represent in various court activities. To be without justice, and there's a concept called civil Gideon, which would mirror to a degree Gideon protections for people charged with criminal infractions. But the idea that so many people go to housing court or to family court and try and represent themselves and may be facing an opponent, and heaven help them, even a family member who comes armed with an attorney. These are not equal playing fields or grounds. Mm-hmm. And people don't get a fair shake.
One of the things that still keeps me up at night is this issue of homelessness. This last go around with Project Home Key, in a way, blew me out of the water. Here it was a site, the county had okayed it. It was blah, 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 it was fine. And the vituperativeness and the anger of the people who don't live right next to it, they really don't, was, I had seen it before, but to see it again where it was so clear, it was a good idea. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't, they had to change over. It was a building that was sitting there. It was empty. It's near the hospital. It's near office buildings. And they brought, did you see in the IJ, they brought a lawsuit. I thought, gee whizzikers. I mean, Marin, what kills me, I don't know that it keeps me up at night. It makes me so angry that we talk out of both sides of our mouths. And it just.
And I'm going to say that MOC had a major part in the 5-0 support from the Board of Supervisors. I'm not sure they would have had it without us. And I'm not just patting myself on the back or ourselves on the back.
No, we met with each and every supervisor. We talked to each and every supervisor. And in some cases, one of the supervisors actually said, you know, I was waffling on this, even though I knew it was the right thing to do, because I had gotten so much pushback. And you're reminding me about rest. You're reminding me of the good work we've done. You're reminding me of things I know. Thank you. I mean, that was such an important meeting. It was like, I thought, it really meant to us that they knew we were going to have their backs on this, that we came to every damn meeting. We wrote letters. We had children writing letters who had been rest, servers. And that came out from one of the meetings. One of the meetings that was like, what can we do? And that was a suggestion. And there you go. So there were teenagers who were writing letters about what they had learned. And it really showed sort of what I said before, the power of doing something locally where you can have an impact. And that lawsuit, I hope it just costs them money, period.
May I suggest to you
who stood up and said, yes, even though the anger and the fear that we were hearing and was, for me, it was physically impacted me listening to the, and I understand the fear that people had. But I kept saying, but these homeless people already live here. We're not importing them from any place. They're our neighbors already. We're giving them a better life. At any rate, that's what we can do when we work together.
Pat, I want to put our emails in the chat so people can write to us if they want. I'll put mine, you put yours, because it's time to, call it. But we would be happy to Gmail dots. What is wait, I wrote it wrong.
May I
Unfortunately,
suggest to you that tonight we heard, and with this most recent discussion, a true example of participatory democracy. You came together as a group collective and actively worked to benefit the community. You were democracy in action.
That's our goal.
unfortunately, we can't easily either copy or download the chat.
Mm.
Oh,
We can take a screenshot, but that's it.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
But if you go to the
for
LLC
anybody that-
website, there's a general Gmail, and just write to it and say, please send this to Pat or Gail, and it will get to us.
We'll find you.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much
Thanks so much.
We'll
for
find
all you're doing.
We hope we'll find you too.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
May I thank everyone tonight for their attendance, and may I thank these lovely participants who came to us tonight for making a door open for community members by telling people where to go, what shot, where they could sign up for 2 future activities. This has been a warm and engaging evening. I cannot thank you enough, and I know that many people will be inspired when they hear what your organization has done. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Denise, for the invitation. We really appreciate it.
And
We
feel,
are honored to have you.
feel better.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Stephen,
night.
I'm just going to make a unrelated comment. I also work as a volunteer